Welcome, Susan Mercer. It's so great to have you here today, and I'm very intrigued about our topic, which is about living well and dying gracefully. And I know we're going to talk about all different types of topics today, what it means to live well, and then given that the fact that we're in the middle of a pandemic right now, and some folks, in my own family, we've lost 7 people in the last 2 months. Through family members and friends, and it's been a really, challenging time for folks. And so I want to talk specifically about your new outlook on death and talk about your best-selling book. But without further ado, I would like to introduce Susan Mercer. She is the international best-selling author of A Graceful Goodbye, A New Outlook on Death. Her experience as an End of Life Doula inspired her book. It is a resource for caregivers and family members of dying loved ones. Living while dying is a blessing you can help your loved one manage with tools, understanding, and kindness found in A Graceful Goodbye. Susan's book speaks of dying, death of a loved one, a relationship, a job, or a pet, the meaning of death, and how to live our best life now. Susan is also the executive producer of the documentary Folds of Honor. This documentary follows the life of Colonel Lieutenant Dan, also known as Noonan, Rooney, a fighter pilot and professional golfer. He created this foundation to provide educational scholarships to the children and spouses of disabled and fallen soldiers. Susan believes every person, regardless of their circumstances, deserves a continuing education to create their fulfilling future. The foundation also provides support during the transition of living life without their loved one present. Susan uses her ability as an intuitive medium to give insightful guidance during her life-death coaching sessions. Her training as an end-of-life doula supports the dying loved one and their family during this sacred time. Susan's interior design acumen creates the peaceful, balanced, harmonious transition space, whether in a care facility, hospital, or at home. She is currently pursuing her dream of obtaining her pilot's license, her private pilot's license. And during these unknown and uncertain times can raise fear. Susan's unique perspective gives light to the darkness and tools to navigate the unknown into the known. You can learn more about Susan and her coaching programs, her speaking programs, as well as her best-selling book by going to modernoutlook.com to learn even more. She's also been featured on a podcast, and you can read more about her published work in Best Self magazine as well as blogs. Welcome, Susan. So I'd love to get started with, this whole concept of living well and dying gracefully. Can you share what, for myself and for the listeners, what do you mean by that?
Hi, Jennifer. Thank you so much for having me. I have found that typically we walk through life in a zombie state. Unless something really awakens us, we just go through our day, get up in the morning, have the same routine, go to work, same routine, come home, and miss a lot of the, even birds singing outside, or the laughter of a child, or even the lick of a pet. We're all caught up in that routine, and to me, that's not living well. That's living, but what if you took that time, that extra 2 minutes in the morning, and just sat and looked out the window and maybe saw flowers blooming that you hadn't seen before? Instead of running, they call, the rat race, you just slow down the rat, get them off the hamster wheel, or, get yourself off that wheel, and really just take the time to notice what's around you, even notice how you're feeling. Does that job that you go to every day light you up? Or is it something that you just do to get a paycheck at the end of the week? And if that's the reason, why are you doing it? And what would light you up? If you take that time, life is meant to be enjoyed. We're on this planet for however long. We don't know what our length of time is. There is an expiration date. We don't know it. So why not do something that fulfills you each and every day? And that's my goal. That's something that I've learned. I was in that rat race of just blinders on and point A to point B, and knew that I was missing something. And now I take that time. I walk in nature. I put my feet in the grass every morning and just reconnect with my world and myself. And I find I'm a much happier person for that. And I want everyone else to be able to have that as well, as we all should. We live in the present moment. It's our gift. Let's take advantage of it.
Perfect. I'd love for you to share, about a little bit more about your journey. I happen to know about your journey and what it's taken you to get to where you are today, and how you help so many people, and just through your work. You were married, had 2 kids, you were an interior designer, very successful. You lived on, the Vineyard, a very prominent place here in off the coast of Massachusetts. And then, you had life changes. Can you talk a little bit about that, and how literally that opened you up to the work that you're teaching today, and how people, right now we're in the midst of this COVID-19 pandemic worldwide. People have either lost loved ones, and or have experienced the coronavirus or COVID-19 themselves, or a loved one has. They may be having relationship challenges as a result of what's happening. Certainly, many people are having financial challenges. And many people are questioning whether or not they're going to have a job, to go back to. What do you say to those people? And I know, as somebody, you walk your talk, can you give us some more insight as to what's your advice to those people that may be facing any one or multiple of those situations?
I have found it's a reset. It's like pressing, it was great. Staples made that easy button. When something happened, you press the easy button. And I feel right now, take that easy button and make it a reset button. It's our opportunity to reevaluate where we are and where we want to go. Again, being sort of walking through life with the blinders, we miss the signs. And I feel with everything that's gone on, there is a huge pause. And it's been a forced upon us pause, yet it's still a pause. So what are we going to do with that pause? I found, yes, I was very fortunate, great marriage, I have great kids, but something was missing. And I needed to leave that to find out what was next. I moved across country. I now live in California, in this beautiful place that honestly I was guided to live in. It's funny when you put out things to the universe, and I truly believe that we have a one-on-one connection with the universe. Things show up completely different than I would have ever thought, yet they still show up. And so once I arrived in California, it was like, okay, now what? What's my next step? And literally, I answered a three-line article in the newspaper looking for hospice volunteers. I thought, I could do that. Signed up, went through the 6-week hospice training, had a client, really enjoyed having one-on-one and working with him at the time. And then they offered End of Life Doula training, and I thought, well, that's interesting. I don't have a fear of death. Let's see what that's about. And through there, that led to my experiences of seeing how the medical industry treats people at their end of life. And to me, it was just not in the sacred manner that it should be. And that's what I wanted to change. And even with family members too. I mean, unless you have experience, unless you've been with somebody who's dying, there's no textbook. There's few textbooks. So I wanted to create one that would walk someone through the process. There's a forgiveness process. There's a regret process. There's, I haven't talked to that person in a while process. How do I talk to them again? What do I say to someone who's dying? Like we put death in a box as well, and people are still living while they're dying. Have conversations. They want to talk about their lives, and yet that's the last thing we bring up. we're all proud of what we've done. There's some aspect in our life that we're proud of, and that needs to have a celebration. And so that's where I feel I want to make that change. And even as you sit with someone at their end of life, they can hear you. Even though they may be unconscious or non-responsive, hearing is our last sense to go. Having music play in the background, talking to them, reciting their favorite poetry, reading them a story, even sharing memories of great vacations, you can actually see the body relax and the breath ease. It's fascinating, yet so many times we're not even told that that's a possibility. And that's what I want to change, that be with that person at the end. It's not morbid, it's not horrible, it's actually quite a beautiful, sacred experience.
That's fantastic. I know that, your ex-husband has now passed away, and you were able to bring your work to his celebration of life with your children. And, what a remarkable, testament to what you do. And so, here's kind of my question is, I think part of the challenge, at least for some people in my own family and close, loved ones, they had people in nursing homes during this time, some of whom have passed away, unfortunately, as a result of the coronavirus, and they weren't able to be with them, or they, I actually had another really close friend of mine, her husband had been undergoing cancer treatment, and unfortunately, he passed away in the hospital during the coronavirus, and she was limited in her ability to be able to see him. And, I observed what a strain that was, not only for him, but for her and for all of us that loved them. And so what do you say, what ways can people have that sacred connection if they're not able to be physically near them?
So life is all about energy. We all have energy, and even though you may not physically be able to touch someone, you can connect with them energetically. And it's been interesting too with this pandemic, and even without the pandemic, some people at their end of life choose to die alone. It's just something they feel complete. I don't really know what the reasoning is. Some want their loved ones near them. There's been experiences where the family is sat with someone for 48 hours. They get up and go to the bathroom for 3 minutes and the person dies. It's like, why did that happen? Because that's what they wanted. That's what that dying person wanted. And so it's, to just create that understanding and learn that there's no regrets. And because everything is energy, my own personal belief is that the body dies. The spirit carries on. Especially with my medium aspect, I have that bridge where I connect to the other side. And there is communication, and they're living their best self on that other side. Whatever disease we've had here doesn't carry there, which is fascinating too. And to me, that's a relief. It's like, oh, they're not taking the burden with them. The burden stays here. So when you can have that communication and call in that energy, light a candle, ask for signs. I was with both my parents last year when they died, and I asked for a sign. I just said, when you make it, whatever that make it place is, send me a sign. And through them, it was songs. My dad, his song, or one that we knew that he knew I would resonate with, was Fly Like an Eagle. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. With my mom, it was Knocking on Heaven's Door. And they literally came on the radio once I get in the car after being with them. So it's things like that that really open yourself up. Again, notice what's around you. If you want to see if feathers is big in your life, then ask to see a feather. And I guarantee your loved one will leave you a feather. If there were, you want coins, you can be specific, even numbers. How many times do you see a 111 or 333 or 444, whatever, as time or maybe an address, notice that that's your loved one coming around just saying, hey, how are you? Thinking of you. And so just because the physical body's gone, I truly feel they live on, especially in our hearts, but in and around us as guides.
I completely agree. I had my own experience. When I was younger, my grandparents died I think my grandmother was the first to go and I was 8. So I was too young to know that. But my dad passed away 19 years ago, actually, 18 and a half years ago. Wow, it's interesting. It's been that long. And I wasn't aware of what you're talking about then. I am now. And I absolutely concur with what you're saying. Even to this day, yesterday I spent the day in Connecticut, and I could sense my dad throughout the day. And one of the ways that my dad communicates with me is through ladybugs. So I could just be walking about, I'll sense my dad, or something will remind me of my dad. And next thing you know, I'll either see a live ladybug, or like yesterday I was walking in Mystic, Connecticut, and I was walking past a shop and I saw this big, huge ladybug. I'm not sure exactly what it was, but it was something that they were selling. And I was like, hey, Dad, and it was really great. And then later on in the day, we talk about celebration of life. We wanted to do something very different to honor my dad when he passed away. And one of his favorite things was music. So we decided to have a gentleman come and play some of his favorite rock and roll songs, Beatles and Boston and several others. And so that's another way that I hear him. I'll just put on the radio, and next thing you know, I'll hear Here Comes the Sun. And I instantly know that that's my dad, just instantly. And it's interesting because another really close friend of mine had a very traumatic experience 7 months ago and lost her husband at sea. And I've even been able to share my experiences, and then, what you've shared with me over the last several years with her. And now she can connect and tap into her husband. It's miraculous, actually. Yeah. So it really works. And I want to say to people that, if you were unable to have that last goodbye physically in the presence of them, you can still do that through intention, through, like what you were saying, everything is energy. So through intention, or just write them a beautiful letter. Write them a letter expressing all that you wish you could have said if you had that, time together physically before.
Absolutely. Light that candle. I look at, celebrate, even though they're not here, still celebrate their birthday. What was their favorite cake? Make it and eat it and enjoy it. Relish and bring back the memories that you had with them when you celebrated their birthdays, and even celebrate their death day. It's still an important day to me. It's their rebirth. It's into whatever's next. So yes, we are sad and we grieve and full out allow that to happen. Also embrace their newness. They're going into something that is unknown, yet comfortable to them. It's like we don't understand it because we're not in that realm, but there's definitely a mid space, for lack of anything else, between when a person stops breathing and when they're still breathing, but then they're in transition over. There's just this middle area, and it's interesting when we allow ourselves to fully be present with that person. You can actually feel and see that space. It's a beautiful space, and it's a space of comfort for them. It's not a traumatic, and even if their life was traumatic on this side, their death, it's still it's like someone puts a beautiful white blanket around them and says, here, come with me. And it's a beautiful experience. And I think if we can embrace that aspect of death, then our own feelings and changes about it will change, will shift. And I believe every person that we experience that dies, whether we're with them or not, changes how we live. And that's their gift back to us. When my parents died, I was like, then that's what encouraged me to get my pilot's license. And like, what am I waiting for? I don't want to be on my deathbed and someone say, oh, what did you do? And very rarely will people say what they did. It's all what they didn't do. I don't want to be that person that says, oh, well, I really wanted to get my pilot's license, but I never did. I want to be that person that says, I lived full on. Yeah. I'm ready. I lived my life the best I could, and okay, I'm ready for now whatever's next. So I feel like each person that does die, that's their gift back to us of living a little bit better or a little bit more full on.
I'd love to summarize what I heard you say throughout this interview, which is, look at what's happening now as a blessing in disguise. I don't think any of us like the situation that that's been put upon us, but yet here it is, right? So we don't have to like something to accept what is. And that's the key, right? Is to live in the present moment, accept what is, and to look for the blessing in even the hardest of times, because the truth is there are blessing in this. And I can speak for myself personally, this time of slowing down, as somebody who has been a very type A++ personality, go, 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 this has been like a respite. And talk about a reset. It's been, an opportunity for me to sit down and reevaluate my life and actually ask myself, am I living the life that I truly want to live? Do I love every aspect of my life? And in some areas I wasn't. And it was great because this pause point has allowed me to see that clearly and make adjustments as a result. I can pivot now. And I want to speak to the fear, right? And I want to talk a little bit about fear before we wrap up this interview. Obviously everyone's feeling uncertain in these times, right? Not, whether it's their 401k, I have an aunt who is going to retire this year, and now she's all upset because of the fact that her 401k took a nosedive a few months ago, and it hasn't fully recuperated. So let's talk a little bit about fear here, because my perception of fear is fear lives in a past-based or future-based mindset. What do I mean by that? It's like I'm afraid of something that may have already happened in the past, may happen again in the future, right? So I'm focusing on something that bad happened in the past, or I'm focused on worry and anxiety about what the future holds, even though in this moment, all is well. And so, what are some tips that you would say for helping people to be mindful and present in the now moment? Because the more we can do that, fear is always going to be a part of our lives, right? I'm sure when you decided to take on becoming a pilot, you just, you were excited, but you had some trepidation and fear too, right? Because it's new. So talk a little bit about fear and how do we manage fear? And but to not let fear stop us from pursuing and creating a life that we love.
So I think fear, it is an interesting 4-letter word. It's another one of those 4-letter words that you just kind of put away. I feel the best thing to do is recognize it. So what about the past brought up the fear? And then how did, like for me, I remember moving across country. Well, I can't move across country. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know. I knew where I was going, but I didn't know anybody there. It's like, okay, so I have a choice. I can stay in the fear of the not knowing, or I can go, and if it doesn't work out, I'll come back. Who cares? So it's taking that step, and I find that, that one step then will lead to the next step that leads to the next step. So it is really just saying, okay, what I have right now is what's in front of me. The past is gone, can't be changed. I can learn from it. Future hasn't happened. So let me breathe right into this moment and take this step. And maybe just one step and you don't take any others. But it's like Steve Jobs had always said, you know, you can only connect the dots looking backwards. And it's amazing when you look backwards on the things that you've taken that courage or that step in that has created a whole new life that you couldn't even see in front of you, because we don't know what that looks like. And it's, for me, it's the fear of the unknown. So let's put it in place. You know, what do you know? Well, I know I have, you know, my home right here. Okay, what can you do with that home? You know, do you embrace it? Do you wish you had something different? You know, so if you wish you had something different, then visualize what you want. So create something in the moment to make the unknown more known. May not be familiar, but at least it will be known. And then you can take the steps accordingly.
Yeah.
Some steps will work out, some won't. That's all part of life and living, and that's why we're here. This is, you know, our life is our book, our textbook. You know, to just, this is why we're given a life, to live it, to walk through things, to go into that dark room and say, you know what, there's actually light in a dark room. Who knew? You know, there's always light someplace. There's always things to move through. And so fear, recognize it. Say, yep, I hear you, fear. I feel you, fear. Thank you for being here. It's making me a little bit more cautious. Yet I'm going to, let's walk through this together, instead of having the fear and having the fear put up a wall. Let it only put up a gate, and that you can still walk through that gate. Take a step and breathe. Our breath, oh my gosh. And I've used this lately more than ever, where something will come up and I'll just feel like, I'm like, wow, I'm not even breathing. And I'll just take that deep breath in through my nose and I'll hold it, and then I'll release it as if I'm going through a straw. And I do that 3 times and it just resets. It's been fascinating to have that. I learned that through Dream Builder program that I work through, and that was a huge gift for me to have that piece. And it's huge, just because our breath is our key to life. Without breath, we're not living. So just as a, you know, that's a great reminder of like, I'm not breathing, I'm not living. Let me take that breath. I'm back to living. I can move through the fear.
And that is key. You know, breath is the life force, right? That is who we are. And if, you know, that actually is the first step. If you're feeling fearful, just pause and slow your breathing down, take deep breaths, and then just take the first step. Like, you know, I think part of the reason why people, at least in my observation or my own experiences, get paralyzed in fear is they're thinking, you know, they're thinking about the worst that could happen, right? And in my experience, all the years that I lived in fear, I don't even know that I could count on all 5 fingers of one hand how many times that actually came to fruition, that my brain said, you know, XYZ was going to happen. It rarely ever did, you know? And so I realized, like, I wasted a lot of time worrying about and trying to get it perfect, trying to get it right. Like, and there's no living in that, you know? For me, it took quite a bit of traumatic experiences to wake me up, to live in the present moment, to be grateful for all that I have, and to act in this moment now, and not project something into the future or not focus on my past, like just live in the now. And if I feel myself getting caught up with something, honestly, I will pause. I will do the breathing like you described, and I'll say, what am I afraid of? Oh, look, I am worried about something that may or may not happen 3 months from now. Hold on. What do I really want to have happen? And it's a pivot. It's a pivot, focusing on what you want to create versus focusing on what you don't want. The more you focus on what you don't want, you have a high probability of creating that. So you brought up visualization. Continue to visualize that what you want and take actions consistent with that and what you want. And before you know it, you'll have it, even in the midst of a pandemic, even in the midst of a world shutdown. I mean, I know people that are living what we are talking about, us included. Like, this has just been you know, it's been a sad time, but a beautiful time at the same time. And I've done a lot of new things in this time that you know, I've been wanting to do, but I was too busy before. Well, now it's perfect time to do it. Learning how to play the piano. I'm writing another book. I'm working on creating my own film. Like, all of these things are emerging. And I am the happiest I've been. I am the most peaceful I've been. And it's just like, ah.
Exactly. That's beautiful. And I mean, and what a mirror too for Mother Earth. You know, she's the healthiest she's been. You know, that was the biggest reset to me. You know, get the cars off the road. And it doesn't have to be for years at a time. Even after, I think it was after 2 weeks of China being shut down, that people were not living in the gray fog anymore. They could see the blue sky and things cleared up. Their life cleared up. India had the same thing, New York City. I live in California, LA got clearer than they have been. And so, you know, this reset has been so important and such a good lesson for us. It's the same thing with reset of fear. Okay, fear, press that reset button. I'm putting you aside. I'm going to fill my time with something other than that fear. And it doesn't need, we don't need months or years to recreate something. Mother Earth cleaned up, and I think it didn't even take 2 weeks.
Yeah.
You know, it all started from the day the cars stopped and then continued. And I feel like getting that clean, whether it's the air or even our own inner thoughts, like you were saying, you know, you have the choice. You can think negative or positive. I'm going to choose positive. You know, I want my thoughts to be something that I want, not something that could happen. I want it to, you know, focus on what I want to have happen. And that's what I think this opportunity has been for all of us. You know, as is, you know, this whole life death thing or relationships. Maybe that wasn't the relationship for you. What did you learn from it? You know, you're a better person for having gone through that relationship than not. You know, the same thing with the job. Okay, job wasn't what you wanted. It's now over. So what kind of a job do you want? And let's see if it shows up. You know, being that curious discovery, just like we are when we're kids. You know, you don't worry about what could happen. It's all like, well, let me discover what's under this rock. What's this next thing? What's down that path? You know, let me pick up this stick and make something. You know, it's with that curious discovery explorer. And I think we're all being called to be that again. Mm-hmm. You know, to be that childlike, and even in our relationships, even with the person who's dying, to look beyond whatever may have been in the way. It doesn't matter anymore. They're a person, they're someone that you loved and cared for. Care and love them now while they're here. And even if they've gone, like you had said, write that letter. Have that sacred moment with them. Work through whatever that regret. Because trust me, at the end of the day, when you're lying on that bed, I want to go out without regrets. I would imagine you do as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Great advice. Well, I know that you are graciously gifting 12 autographed copies of your best-selling book, A Graceful Goodbye, a new outlook on death. And it doesn't mean just the physical death. It also means like the death of a relationship, a death of a job, or, you know, in that transition mode. And so you're gifting for the first 12 people that contact you, and we will give you the details of how you can contact Susan directly, but you're going to give away 12 autographed copies of your book, as well as 30-minute complimentary coaching session about anybody who's dealing with a transition or a death at this point in time, so that you can help them navigate, whatever way will lead them in the direction that they really want to go in. So for those people that sign up, they can do so by going directly to, we'll give them your contact information. For those that are still interested in learning more, you can go to modernoutlook.com. You can purchase Susan's book on Amazon as well. And as we wrap up, any last words of wisdom that you want to share with our listeners today?
Take at least 5 minutes. 5 minutes is no time at all to just sit and observe. Observe yourself, observe your feelings, observe your life around you. Look outside, listen for the birds. Do something that brings you joy. And then you'll find that those 5 minutes, you'll be doing them throughout your day and smiling more and just feeling better about life. And then living full on. That's what I wish for each and every one of you. Just live full on. That's what we're here for.
Well, you certainly live your talk, and it's been a pleasure having you here today. And thank you for your generosity and your willingness to give away 12 of your books and set up coaching sessions for people. Please take advantage of it. Susan's an amazing woman, has amazing talents. And this is a really important time to get clear about what it is you want as you move forward. So thank you, Susan. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Jennifer. I appreciate our time together.
You too.